let's dive into introductions. Kenna, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kenna Miller, and I'm a senior instructional designer on the digital learning solutions team at LAPU. On a daily basis, I work with subject matter experts, the academic team, and the media team to create interactive and exciting courses for students. Like George said, we are so happy that you're here, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you today.
And I am Callista Dawson. I am a senior instructional media designer. I'm on that media team that Kenna just mentioned. Our forte is finding exciting ways to make our courses more fun, engaging, and beautiful, to really improve the learning experience and the retention of information in our students.
And I'm George Hanshaw, Director of Digital Learning Solutions, and we're using that name first today because it turns official July 1. We're switching from the e-learning team to Digital Learning Solutions to keep up with all the changes in the world. And I am fortunate enough to work with amazing people such as Kenna, Callista, and I see Efren here, and Ronaldine may be here as well. And it's just amazing to work with this team as I get to see all the creative stuff that happens and wish that I was at that level. So that's my job, to wish and hope that I was at that level with creativity. All right. Go ahead. And we use the learn, apply, practice, utilize model. And it's kind of cool because we came up with that. Callista and I actually made that an official model, the LAPU learning model with the no feel do framework. We're going to jump into why the feel is important here in a second. But with it, it just really structures the way the learning is, the way we give out content, and the learn piece, not to get too far into it because that's not what we're here for today, but that's where students access content to acquire necessary knowledge and necessary skills. What can they do with it? And they move to the apply section, which they take that knowledge they just learned, combine it with a previous knowledge. So their newly acquired previous knowledge comes together, and they integrate it so they can contextualize it, whatever they're using. Like we use this in our competency-based education, where we have an MS IDT degree. So Master of Science in Instructional Design and Technology. And the apply section is where they take what they already know and combine the new stuff. And then they go to the practice where they practice utilizing those skills together. So they take what they've learned and they really narrow it down to their field of practice. And in our case, we're going to use this for design, demo, and feedback. And the first section is mine. I'm not going to go into the utilize section because that's going to be revealed at the end. Just suffice it to say that utilize is when if you're in one of our CBE programs, you're going to create an artifact or create something super cool. So I don't know what that's going to entail today because it's a surprise. Callista wouldn't even let me know, which was awesome. So I have the learn section. So can we just dive into the learn section because it's the psychology of sticky learning and media. So we said that we use the LAPU learning model and the no feel do framework. So to make sticky learning, it's all about making it feel. It's about learning and feeling and creating that. So is anybody, can we go to the next slide real quick? So I'd like everybody just to kind of walk with me for a minute and think of a time when you read a book and you loved that book and it stuck with you. The content from the book stuck. So what stuck with you? Does anybody want to share a book they read and something that stuck with them from that book?
I can jump.
Okay. Oh, what's that?
I'll help you out. I think probably one of the most memorable books I've read, well, if I can talk today, it's called Crazy Love by Francis Chan. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a pretty well-known pastor, but I got my hands on that book, I think, right as I was finishing college. And it totally shifted the way that I view God and my relationship with God, and just it kind of like turned my whole paradigm on top of its head when it comes to spirituality and faith. So it was very impactful for me.
That's very cool. So when you come up with that memory, it's a feel.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we're not remembering those text words on the page. We're remembering the feel that it gives us, or the picture that's painted within our minds. And
Oh,
that's what touches us,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
That picture is what touches us, right? Your relationship with God at that time. That's what's touching you in that picture of how that is what makes it stick.
Yeah.
I would say. Would you agree with that?
Totally. Like the whole book is full of illustrations and mental visuals. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes the connection and the feel. It's kind of awesome the way that works. Does anybody else have a favorite book or something that connected with? Don't make me tell my Hank Aaron story from the third grade. Okay, it's going to have to happen. So for me, when I was in the third grade, I didn't like. I still don't like reading, but I didn't like reading then either. And uh, we would go to the library once a week, and I would check out the same book every week. So we'd go Monday to check a book out, and we'd go back Friday to check the book in. So every Monday, I would check out this book on Hank Aaron. And I can't tell you the number of home runs he hit, but I can tell you every single thing, every single picture within that book about him swinging, him running, because they were all black and white pictures at that time within the book. So I can tell you every single thing that happened within there because of the pictures that kind of stuck with my head. And that was from repetition and those visual cues, which was kind of cool. So visual cues help us make that connection with the content that we're in, is the whole thing. And that's how we make learning sticky. So let's try something on the next slide here. We're going to see how the experts do it. And has anybody ever heard of a memory athlete? Yeah, believe it or not, there's such a thing as a memory athlete. So it's kind of cool. And they have they have a lot of go-tos, but the top three is they organize the content, they associate it with something, and then they use a visual cue to be able to recall it. Because our memory goes from our short-term working memory, long-term, and then we have to be able to recall it. Without that association and visual cue, the learning doesn't stick. So, with that said, if it doesn't stick, let's show this next slide, which will kind of illustrate this well. This isn't going to stick. We can read it, and that's good. So, quick quiz question. If I read this once, so I'm studying, right? I'm reading my textbook. So if I read this once and then I read it again, what percent will I increase my memory of this content right here? To what percent? Anybody got an idea? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Ooh, 10%, 10%, 5%. Michaela cheated. She read my mind. Peggy went with 10. Daniel went with 10. But yeah, about literally 5 to 10%. Most of the studies kind of go like 5 or 6% of you'll have the memory of it. So you don't want to just reread something. It's known as the least effective way to have learning stick. And am I the only one going through school that would reread a lot and waste a lot of time doing that? Am I the only one? So let's jump in and look at this example that I have next, which is a very rudimentary example, but it shows how we can use visuals to help us. And that's the whole thing. That was that entire, the meat and potatoes of that entire paragraph. So we anchor it to something and we use visual cues. And the visual cues I use were very rudimentary, just to kind of make a point that you're going to learn a lot here today from Callista and Kenna on how to make them really good and really memorable. But there's a lot of tools within Canva as well that can help you do things quickly, because that took me literally less than 10 minutes to put together. That's why I kind of used it. So if you're in a hurry, Canva is a great tool as well. And it helps us use those graphics that are already there to connect with that. So we know that we make associations and then we use a visual cue, organize, associate, visual cue. And that visual cue is what we're working on today, even though graphics help us with that association as well. So let's go to the next one. This one's going to be fun. All right, so we're just going to, I'll tell you when to stop the video. Ken, did you happen to share the audio?
I did, but let me know if it doesn't work.
All right, and I'll tell you when to stop.
You are about to take part in a quick experiment. Take a look at this. Okay, now, did you happen to
pause
notice
for a second?
Watch again.
Okay, so what's the difference? Did anybody notice the difference, the big change in it? You can holler it out or put it in the chat, whichever one you want. Hat, okay, we got Michaela with the hat. I love it. We're looking at detail, so we want to be super detailed, right? That's how we initially just kind of dive into things. We get details, details, details. What else? Did anybody else notice anything that changed? Anybody? No? All right, let's go ahead and hit play and let's find out what changed.
See any changes? Don't worry if you didn't see that it's two different men. That means your brain is doing exactly what it should be. It's
Go ahead,
focusing on
pause.
the rather than on the irrelevant.
So did anybody notice that it was a different person? Because our mind is so focused on the detail, and that yeah, okay, I didn't either when I first saw this, so I thought it was cool. And I was expecting to see a change. So I when I first looked at this, I wanted to see something. The shirt, but not the different person. Oh yeah, different shirt as well. Alexa saw that. So this is a very important piece. We're gonna look into that selective attention and how to use graphics and cool looking stuff to help people focus that attention where they need it to be for their learning. One way that is really super simple is to just simply use icons in certain areas to say, hey, this is important for this reason. And then they'll make that association with that icon. So let's try one more. Let's try the next one. Let's see. So now that we're pre-programmed for this, let's see how we get it, how we do with this one. Drum roll. All right, so did anybody see the toy when he raised his hand? Oh,
Nope.
everybody's using the chat. Susan, did you see it?
No, I was gonna say I did not notice it till the very end.
Yeah, and I don't think any of us Yeah, Calista didn't know it was a toy. When I first saw this, I didn't know it was a toy either. So how do you think we can use this to our advantage to help people learn? Is kind of the key here. What are some ideas? Holler them out.
I think what you mentioned before is obviously a good idea of just being obvious with where you want their attention to go. Make it super clear with icons, colors, whatever tools we have at our disposal.
Color code, yeah. Learner's attention, most important information. Yeah, Alexis, yeah, absolutely. Just get them to focus where it's the most beneficial. Because remember the three strategies. So you're going to organize the information. This is how the experts do it. Organize the information, set up an association, and then a visual cue to be able to recall it. Because if you can't recall a piece of information quickly, you can't use it really in a creative way. So we have to really practice. There's other strategies to make it, but since we're talking about graphics today, this is a very powerful way to be able to organize it. And then once we organize it, we're going to, does anybody remember the second part? Organize. And then the third part is a visual cue. So we'll keep that as the, associate. Yes, thank you. Kayla was on her game, the A game. Oh, eliminating unnecessary visual cues we don't want users to focus on. All right, so Elaine, I'm going to put you on the spot if that's okay. Where have you seen that? Have you seen that happen before? You can unmute yourself and just holler it out if you like.
What comes to mind when I think about unnecessary visual cues are infographics, really busy infographics that are trying to explain maybe a strategy or a plan or a system. And the second thing that comes to mind are anchor charts within the classroom, sticking to only the graphings that you want the elementary students to focus on.
Those are great points. Yeah, because when I used to be the absolute best at creating overly complex infographics until Callista trained me to stop it. Because it's very easy to make things confusing and use too much stuff, but it takes a lot of intention and effort to take that minimalist approach that you're kind of talking about there, and really just make it so it focuses that learner where they need to be. So that's kind of my part for making it sticky. That's the learn piece. You use it to organize, associate, and visual cue to be able to bring it right back out. And the question of the day. So here's my quiz question for the day. In the silly video that I made, where does the long-term memory go? Think of the animal. Does anybody remember that one? Come on, it's my favorite word. Yeah, the hippocampus. That's my favorite part of the brain. Yeah, I like the hippocampus. It goes from prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and if we use those visual cues and it's organized well, we can recall it quickly, so we can use it in a creative way to solve problems. And that is a big deal because there's a lot of problems that need to be solved. So that's the learn section of this. So thank you for allowing me to come in and share that piece. I'm going to hand it over to Kenna.
All right. Oh, do you have one more? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay, real quick. I love. Okay, so did everybody saw this gentleman drop boxes? This is another It's like I love me some psychology, right? This is another aspect, because when you saw him starting to juggle the boxes right before he fell, did you feel anything? You probably did, because we have these mirroring neurons that kind of make us feel like when we see something that is happening real time in life, and we associate with that really strongly. So I just wanted to bring that up, that when we see things, we naturally make associations with it. So help the learners with graphics to make key associations so they can grab it well, because with memory, the more we can feel it, the more easier it is to recall. And those graphics really help us with that. So whatever it may be. So video is an amazing tool, and Canva has a lot of video options out there as well, because that was just a video that was in Canva already. So sorry, now, Hannah.
Thank you, George. Hi, everyone. It's Kenna again, and I'm going to dive into the next section, which now is applying what George went over as far as making media sticky and how to really incorporate that and make an environment of creativity in your classroom or learning space. So first off, I hope that we can all agree that incorporating media and creativity into your course or training can literally be life-changing for learners or students. And as George was saying, media makes for a richer learning experience, and it can really help information stick, especially if you follow that format of organizing it well, of making those associations and using those visual cues to help learners recall the information. So the real task for you is determining how you can best incorporate media into your courses or lesson plans, and when would be the best time to do so. So media almost always helps. Usually it does help, but students, there may be certain situations where it may not be the best option for students or the best fit. And some examples of this could be on specific assessments, or when media is not readily available to fit the learning objectives that you have. So I hope, though, that we can all agree that media does usually help the learning process that students undergo, and it really helps promote that engagement and information retention for students. So 2 easy ways that you can consider incorporating media into your course is to either select existing media or develop media for your course or course design. And another one is to allow students to utilize media to make connections to the content themselves. So I'm sure many of you have found specific pieces of media, whether that's a video, an infographic, or something of the sort, that almost fits for what you need it for. There may be something that's inapplicable or too complex for your audience. And I've definitely been in that situation where I found something that's almost perfect, but not quite there. And that's definitely where Canva can come in, which Calista will touch on later. And secondly, the idea of allowing students to utilize media really opens the door for their creativity and gives them the opportunity to make a better connection to the material themselves. So as they utilize all of the topics that you're teaching them to really learn more about that and to make or create their own media, they're really making those really deep connections to that content. And they're also allowing their curiosity to direct their work, which just really opens the door up to more creativity and creating those connections in their mind that they're able to recall easier. So next, let's look at just the outcomes and reality. So the outcome in a perfect world would be that media does have a life-changing effect on someone's learning all the time, but the reality is that media may not always be available or the best option or appropriate for the given situation. And that is kind of up to you as the instructor to discern that. So the big questions now are how and when to incorporate media into your courses. And first, let's dive into the when. There are many, many different things that you should consider. And I pulled just some of the top 5 that I think you should consider as you're going through your course design of when to incorporate media and at what points. So firstly, you should analyze your objectives. And if the media can enhance the objectives that you have for the learning experience, whatever that is, then you should use it. Secondly, you should take a look at the different types of media that you can include. There are tons of different types of media out there, but each different type of media will give the student a different experience and will have a different outcome for the student. For example, a video explanation is much different than a timeline, and that's also different than flashcards. And the student experience will be different as they engage with each of those, and they will have a different outcome by the time the student goes through that. So when you're determining the type of media, revisit your objectives and make sure that the type of media you're choosing is intuitive and really supports those objectives. Thirdly is relevance. Some questions to consider here are, is the media relevant to your objectives? Will the media be appropriate for your audience? And will it be engaging for your audience as well? For example, you wouldn't use something super complex to explain something to a first grader, and you wouldn't use the same thing or the same type of media for first grade as for a college student. So just have that discernment and determine the relevance of the type of media you've chosen to your audience. Fourthly, we have enhances learning. Does the media offer a richer experience for students? Will the students have a richer interaction by utilizing the media to investigate or learn more about the topic? Will the media contribute to a better learning experience for the students? And something else to really consider here is, would other interactions be better or more effective than media? And this could come in the form of you working one-on-one with the student to help them master a skill or topic. Or if you're in a classroom setting, would a group assignment or some type of group interaction work better than using media in this specific case? So again, revisit your objectives and determine what would be the best use of your time as far as developing media or some other sort of interaction for your students. And fifthly, use appropriately. And I'm also going to say use sparingly here. Media is great, but don't overuse it as well, or use it for the sake of just using it. If media is cumbersome, if it's too long, or if there is too much media that students have to go through, they likely won't benefit from it as much, or they may not even interact with it at all. So for this one, just make sure you're using media appropriately and strategically to really enhance the learning experience for the students. So,
I love how that really correlates with what Elena said earlier as well, too. That's very cool.
Yeah, about the infographics and how it's, there's too much information that students are trying to absorb. Definitely keep that in mind when you're deciding when to put it into courses or just how you're going to design it. All right, so now that we have addressed the when, we're going to move into the how. There are a variety of ways that media can be used, and I've included just some of the different ways on this slide. There are static, multimedia, and interactive types of media that all have varying ranges of interactivity. Something to keep in mind as well, usually the more interactive media is, the more planning and time it takes to develop. So that's something to keep in mind as you're building this out. Just, your timeline, the quality and cost that you want to produce when making media, and all of those sorts of things. So here under static, we have brochures, guides, graphic and visual types of media like logos, infographics. PDFs also fall under this category. Under multimedia, we have graphics and visuals, which can be GIFs, and any audio or visual type of media as well. And then interactive media is usually something that the students are able to engage with and kind of make decisions through almost, and they're able to get different outcomes at the end that can take the form of branching scenarios, e-learning, or even gamification. And this is definitely not exhaustive. There are so many different types of media as well. And just something to note, Callista is probably going to stick more in the static area today. Canva does have a lot of features, but you know, that definitely isn't an exhaustive tool either. So as you go through your media journey, definitely check out different tools as well if you're interested in something more interactive. And then next, I wanted to briefly go through some examples, and there are 2 QR codes on the screen. So feel free to take out your phone. You can open up the different sites for both of these. I have the YouTube channel QR code on here, and that is our e-learning YouTube channel. We have a variety of videos on there, from overview videos to explanations to even videos from professors and different subject matter experts that we have worked with. So hopefully that's helpful to you and inspirational if you're looking to make videos or that type of media. And then I also have our I Am gallery here, and I'm going to pop over to that actually, but that shows just some of the different types of media that we have made, and Callista can definitely tell you more about them if you have any questions, but these are just some of the different types of media that we usually make for our courses. So hopefully that's also helpful to you. Also, just to note, some of these designs are made with Canva, so they may look familiar when we jump into the Canva demo, but not all of them are made in Canva as well. So just keep that in mind. If you see something that looks really cool, but you don't see a direct correlation to what you're going to do in Canva, it was probably made in a different program. So as you go through the I Am gallery, you can navigate to the different sections through that sidebar. But we have it broken up into a couple different folders. Our first folder is PDF, which has a couple different PDFs here for print. We have a case study, and then we also have an infographic that you can either download if you want to see it closer, or there is a little zoom button if you'd like to see it a little bit closer. We have our narrative items as well, and under that we have our podcast. So if you're interested, feel free to listen to that. We cover some different topics on there as far as design and our processes at LAPU. And we have some really great guest speakers as well. And next we have storytelling. There are a few different videos here that highlight different topics. There's a case study and some ethical issues here in this video. And then next we have explanations. Those are short videos explaining how to complete a task or grow your skill in a certain specific skill. So we have those there. Then we also have LAPU stories, which are different comic strips, and we use these. We take stories from professors or subject matter experts, and we create these to kind of just make a way for the students to relate to their professors or the subject matter experts in a closer manner. Usually these stories are events that have happened in their own life, or kind of just career stories, and they're inspirational to students and allow them to connect with their instructors on a deeper level. We have a couple of those you can click through. And then the next folder we have is interactive, and under here we have simulations. So there are a few here that you can actually go through if you click this play the game button under each of them. So if you're interested in that, you can do that. Then we have scenarios with multiple choice. Those are somewhat similar. And then we also have multiple choice and multiple outcome scenarios. So those are more branching scenarios where students can make different decisions and see how their decisions impact the overall result of whatever the topic is. We have a few different ones here. And then we also have a page for different widgets. So these are some different widgets that we create at different levels for students and for our classes. We have hotspots here where you can click the different hotspots and information will pop up. We have flashcards. We have video assessments, and at different points during the video, a quiz question will pop up that the students have to answer. And we also have matching, true and false, and a variety of different multiple choice and or quiz questions. And then we have a gallery, which is somewhat similar to a PowerPoint that students can click through. And then we have an accordion here as well. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but hopefully it does provide some inspiration for you as you go through it. And then lastly here, we have our award-winning projects. So this is kind of a gallery of different projects that the IM team has made and has submitted to contests and won awards for. One that I did want to point out to you that would probably be helpful is this accessibility mindfulness video. As you go through the process of making different types of media, accessibility is definitely something you want to have in mind to make sure that your media is accessible to everybody. And this video has some really great tips for you just as you begin doing that. So I highly recommend this video for you. But anyway, so definitely feel free to explore at your leisure. There are many different things on here, and hopefully it's inspirational and helpful to you as you begin developing your own media. And I'm going to pop back into our presentation now. So now I want to open it up to you all. I know that we have definitely learned some lessons just in making different decisions with our media. And so I want to open that up to you all. The question I have for you is, how have you implemented media and what worked and what didn't? So feel free to unmute and share if you'd like. I know that we could all probably learn from each other just through different experiences that we've all had.
Starting to,
I can share. Oh, never mind. Someone else can go.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm starting to gravitate towards just creating simple work aids for my teachers, because I know they have a lot to cover and they have a lot of different tasks. So just creating a work aid with maybe 3 simple steps, and one of those steps is a video, a really short 3-minute video that they can watch. I think that it makes the information, the content very accessible, and it's easy to navigate through without them having to go through piles and piles of literature and work. So I just like to create something short and simple, just like a 1-pager for my teachers if I want to convey some information to them.
Definitely. And I love how you just said like a 1-pager, but you transferred it into a video, because I feel like my mom's a kindergarten teacher actually, and I feel like a video would be much less daunting than, oh, I got to sit down and read this whole page and figure out what I need to do. And a video is much more straightforward and just easy to access for sure.
Oh, and I also wanted to add, I love the fact with Canva, I can add audio. So if there's a learner that just wants to listen, they can just click on the button and listen to what I have to say, or they can read. So I try to incorporate different features for different types of learners.
That's awesome, definitely. And that's something that falls under that accessibility umbrella for sure. Just thinking about all the different learners that you will encounter in your course and what you can do to support them and make learning easy for them. So that's awesome. Did anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I can go. So hi everyone, my name is Carla. I work at APU and I am a recruiter. Hello. So I really try to think of like the students I'm working with. So I work with current students here at the campus, try to engage them with content like newsletters and flyers that we post up. So those are pretty simple. I think the ones that I'm still kind of working on is like static, the multimedia ones, like including links and all that is for prospective students. I try my best to create content that engages them. But it gets a little tricky. I think some media I don't know too much about, and then like trying to include your links is a huge deal because I want to make sure they have access to like financial aid and all that stuff. So that's something I've been working with. There's a lot of things that don't work sometimes. I think the colors that I choose, I love color, but it doesn't always work all the time. So I think just catering it to them and thinking of like, okay, a lot of them are probably not looking at their emails like I am on a desktop. I think a lot of them are looking at it on their phones on their way to work or on their way back from work or on their lunch break. So that's something that I've thought of and I think has really helped.
That's awesome. And yeah, Callista definitely will be able to help you out with some of those things that you want to learn how to do. She's a pro, so I know that she'll definitely be able to help you out when we jump into the demo. But I think that is something that can be an issue or very daunting, you know, just trying to figure out, okay, how is the person who I want to see this accessing it, and how can I make it easier for them and eye-catching so that they remember it or want to engage with it as well. So those are all good things to keep in mind as you're making your media. Does anyone else want to share any lessons learned or something that really works for you that could benefit the rest of the group?
Hi. You don't see my face, and that's a good thing because I don't like people seeing me on here. But when I was in undergrad, I had this flyer that I needed to circulate to my class, and we were using Blackboard at the time. And so we put it out so that the whole class could see it. And for some reason, everybody was saying, hey, we didn't get this, or it didn't work, or I couldn't click on it. And so we said, oh my God, how are we going to, like, what other avenue was there for us to use? Because we just had, the presentation was soon. And so we were kind of stuck with time and didn't really know what else was out there in such a short time. And so back then it was like PowerPoint and Prezi was just coming out. And at that point, I started stressing out, and the only person I cared enough to see what I needed to see was my instructor. You know how it gets at that time where it's like, I don't care if the class doesn't see it. I just care that my instructor sees it. We put this work in. And so we were stuck with that. And on presentation day, the thing blew out. And the only person who could see it was whoever owned that laptop. So it was not a good day for us. It was like, this is what it's supposed to say, and we really did it, but you can't see it, and I don't know why. So I think from that, I learned when you have a presentation, you circulate it to everybody in your group so that everybody has it, that if your instructor can't open it on yours, or if you can't open it, somebody should be able to say, I have it. Even if it's just a paper, you know, I'm supposed to turn in the paper, but my computer's not working. Somebody else needs to be able to say it's available so that it can get in there and everybody can see it. And I think
And, you know, that's what I love about Canva, because it's on the cloud.
See,
so
but
you can share the link.
That's fair. Yeah.
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 I'll add
That's a big deal. That is a
Canva.
big deal.
Yeah, the cool thing in Canva too, when you're making presentations, is you can add all your group members as collaborators. You can use the view only link to send that to anybody and everybody. And one of the things that they've added recently too is you can add remote control of the presentation. So if you're doing a group presentation like we are right now, all three of us can actually control the slide progression if we have the remote control on our phone. And it's a really cool feature. I can show that to you later during the demo, or if Kenna can show it. I don't know if you can show it right now, but yeah, they've really built out their presentation tool to make it super collaborative, super easy to share with whoever needs to have access to it. And I solely use Canva now when I'm doing presentations. I haven't opened PowerPoint in I don't know how long.
Stuff like that gets antiquated quickly.
Does anybody else have any lessons learned or anything that they want to share with the group?
Do you want to read out any of the comments in our chat over here?
You can go ahead. I don't have it up since my
Sure.
my screen.
So Alexis shared that she recently used Canva to add a brief video clip to a course in Articulate Rise. The graphic options were awesome, but making it accessible was pretty tricky. I do have some things I can share about accessibility later, so we'll get to that. Paige said, I've used static media to produce a consistent look and feel to the course, independent of the LMS. I pick photos and graphics meaningful to the subject matter. I definitely use Canva for that as well. Emily shared, hi Emily, she shared that sometimes it's frustrating when processes change, so the content needs to be updated, and it's not always easy as just a few tweaks. Sometimes the complete rework of the content is needed. I hear you on that. We just had to do a full rework on our new student orientation because we had a LMS update that changed how everything looks. But I will say that now that I've been making the content in Canva, updating it took way less time, even with the video editing. Like it cut down my production time by half at least. So I'm a big proponent for shifting things into Canva. All right. Oh, Peggy asked why Canva is better than using PowerPoint for presentations. So along with some of the other things I already mentioned, I think for me, it just out of the box looks better because they have so many beautiful templates and they're so easy to customize, which is something we can look at in our demo time. But the real kicker is the collaborative nature of it. I don't honestly know if PowerPoint has added any of these types of collaborative features because I stopped using it once Canva became my go-to. But it's just so fun, and they've added these hotkey like magic things so that you can make your presentation really fun. It has like this curtain call that you can add to your presentation. It has mic drop moments if you want to be really silly, and if that's the tone of your presentation, it has all kinds of fun things, like you can have bubbles go up the screen, or I can't remember all of them, but I would encourage you to play with it. There's just some really fun elements that make it more interactive for your audience.
Definitely. Anybody else want to share? One thing that I can share, I know Callista spoke about it, one of our lessons learned, but it is very hard to come up with media that has that longevity, especially if it involves like a how-to, a step-by-step, or something to do with technology, because as we know, it changes so quickly. And she recently had to redo our new student orientation because of that. But it is easier to do in Canva as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Some other things that we have had to kind of update over time. We've had to redo some of our media to make it more accessible, just as we have developed different practices to make sure that our media is accessible for all students, and just trying to make things pretty, as Callista would say. We do have some pretty old media that has been redone over time, and I don't think that's unavoidable, but just I think kind of having that mindset, and don't get too tied to your media. Know that eventually you'll probably have to update it if you want to continue to use it as well. So, all right, if nobody has anything else to share, then I think now would be a good time for a little break.
All right, as everybody's coming back together, this is where we're going to start the meat of our workshop and actually get our hands dirty in the Canva tool. So if you're not already logged into Canva, go ahead and do that right now, because I want you guys to be learning while doing, and I'm sure questions will come up as you're clicking around in the tool. So I want you to feel free to ask those questions. If you put them in the chat, Kenna and George can read them out to me. You can use the raise hand tool. You can just unmute yourself and be like, hey, hold on, slow down, I have a question. I'm sure we all are going to go at different speeds, and I have a tendency to talk fast. So please, please tell me if I'm zooming too far ahead. As you know, I've been using this tool a lot, so it's not new to me. So I will hopefully be able to help you all level up your skills today. I am going to take over the screen share. If Kenna, you want to turn off yours, I'll turn mine on. Okay. So while everybody's logging in, I am most curious to know off the top of your head, what's something you're hoping to learn today? So if you can put that in the chat, I'll do my best to make sure we cover everything that everybody wants to cover. And then hopefully I'll even surprise you with some of the features that you don't know about. Let's see. So for our beginners and first timers, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick overview of the home page. Can you all see my Canva homepage? Give me a thumbs up, George, if you can see it. Okay. So a great place to start. Everybody's going to see this when they log in. And it's pretty self-explanatory what you're looking at here on the homepage. It's giving you suggestions on quick starting points. So if you already know what it is you're going to make, you can just look through these suggestions here and be like, yes, I do want to make an infographic, and just click that. It'll open a document that's already set up at these dimensions. Easy peasy. If you're not entirely sure exactly what you want to make, but you know which category you want to be in, so like I need to make a social media post, you click the social media icon, and now these change to be all the popular social media types of starting points and templates. The other thing on the home page is, let's see if I go back to how it was before I clicked on social media. What other things I saw here were my recent designs. So everything that I've been working on recently is sorted here by chronological order as to the last time I opened it. So obviously the last thing I opened was our presentation for today. And here is that, the first thing on my list. Another thing you can do is search the content, and you can use this search bar to either look at your own projects or at their template library. So if I wanted to make something about, let's say, a worksheet for math, that's going to bring up everything in their database, their template database that has to do with math worksheets. You will notice that they range from elementary to post-secondary, and there's different looks and feels, but all of these are templates that can be customized. So that's something that you should note. What else do we want to go? Oh, I want to show you also this education tab. This is a relatively new addition to their suite. It is filled with information directed at teachers. And recently I actually applied to be in their education creator program. So I've been an education creator for Canva now for a couple of weeks. I'm still going through the onboarding process, but it's been really fun, and I've learned a lot about their philosophy and how they create their templates. So I can definitely endorse the fact that their templates are very rigorously reviewed, and they are not approved unless they are applicable, have they meet different learning standards, and they have to be easy to customize. Like, so you can feel comfortable using their templates. And yeah, I would encourage you to just click through these on your own time and read the different resources that they've included for teachers, because it's definitely worth going through that. Okay, so the create a design button is always going to be here at the top right. And if you click that, it has a search bar as well. This is basically just to allow you to find a template or not a custom size, but a preset size for the type of project you're going to work on. If you know exactly what size you need, you can just click on custom size. But the problem with using custom size is that it's not going to necessarily fit any of the pre-made templates. So if you're not going to use a template, feel free to make a custom size document. If you have a custom size document, you might have to take elements from other templates and fit them to your needs. So you would just type in, I want a 400 by 600, create a new design, and voila, easy click of a button. The other thing too is if you have a pro account or an education account, you can easily resize this. Once you're in the document, say, you know, I meant to make it 600 by 400. You can just change that. And you can either make a copy and resize it or just resize it. And now it's correct to what I meant to put. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about is searching for the templates. All of their templates follow a naming convention. So it would be subject, color, learning level, and any other important keywords that would be applicable to it. So say I'm looking for a template that is about, let's say art, but I want it to be blue. I could put art blue and you'll see it starts auto-generating. Blue modern minimalist, artificial intelligence technology presentation. So as you can see, the titles can get very detailed, but it helps you in looking for what it is you want to find. So this one added the keywords modern and minimalist. So those are style words. And if I click on that, you're going to see a lot of similar but different templates that fit those keywords. Okay. Let's talk about customizing one. So can somebody shout out a subject that they teach or that they would want to see a resource made for right now? Anybody have something they want to use for this? The naming conventions do usually start with color and then style. That's kind of what they ask us to do as the template creators. Ken or George, do you have a subject you want to toss out there?
Could we look for, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe some kind of biology or something like that. I'm working with someone who's a biology instructor,
Okay.
so
Do we want to make a presentation? Or
yeah, presentation. Mhm.
Okay, that's easy. Let's see what they have for biology presentations. All right, we've got some very different aesthetics here because I didn't choose a style. So it's giving me all the different styles now. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one just because it's catching my eye. When you click on it, it'll show you that there's animation, there's different slides built into it. So you can quickly at a glance see like, yes, this suits my needs. I do want to use this. And then I'll say, customize this template. Now I can see like the title here, green, vintage, illustration, laboratory business presentation. I want to customize this to my color scheme. So in Canva, I've got it set up with my brand colors. I'll say apply all 18 pages because I want to use this whole thing. And then I want to change to my style. So I'm going to go to the style tab and my brand colors are right here at the top. These are the LAPU brand colors. All I have to do is click this and it automatically changes it. Now, I don't really love the choice it made with where it put each color. So I'm gonna click it again and it's gonna shuffle. That's a little bit better. I'm gonna click it again. That's not the best. So I'm not getting something that's like perfect, in my opinion. I think I do like the blue in the background, but I want this red to be the beige color. So when I click on this, this is the color swatch that's currently active. These are all the colors present in the document because I haven't applied the theme to every slide, but these are my brand colors. So I'm going to try the beige for that. I kind of like that. So I'm going to say change all. So now all the red is beige. And then my little frog is beige. So he's disappearing. I'm going to make him my orange color. Oh, he's got 4 colors on him. So I'm going to make that one red then, or maybe we'll go back to gray with the lines. So his beige color is right here. I'll make him all orange, and then his belly can be red. That stands out a little bit better. Normally I wouldn't use these colors for everything, but just to show you how quick and easy it is to change the colors, it's very simple. And this change all feature is really handy when you're doing a presentation like this. So like this yellow color, I can't use that at all, right? So I want all the yellows to be red through the whole document. See, now all the yellows are red. So that is a handy feature that I picked up that makes my life so much easier. Let's see what else we have here. These graphics are elements that they pulled from the element library. So I'm going to click on elements here. And let's say I want to swap out the lab introduction graphic. So I'm going to say, instead of a test tube, I want, what's something else that's in a lab? Let's say, I'll just put laboratory and see what comes up. I want it to be a graphic, not a photo. So we'll select graphics. Got lots of test tubes here. I would say this style for these icons is more of like a hand-drawn style. So that's kind of what I'm looking for here. I can even select a color that I want it to be. So let's say I want gray. Let's see what comes up. We've got more microscopes here. This one's kind of cool. I know I have a microscope there, but just to show you, I can click that and it'll pop it up. I can resize it to match the size of the one that's already there. See how it's snapping? And then to delete the other one, since it's underneath, I can click on position, layers, and find that test tube here and just delete it. And now it's gone. And then if I want to change the colors on this guy, that's super easy too. So I can just select whatever I want and it's gonna change. Real simple. Those aren't my favorite colors, but you get the idea. So as I mentioned, the style of these icons, it falls into their hand-drawn style. Canva likes to group their elements into 5 basic style categories. There's hand-drawn, flat, lined, 3D, and collage. So typically when you're searching, those are some of the keywords you would want to use. So if I wanted 3D icons instead, I just type 3D and now all of these elements have that 3D look and feel. So let's see if they have a 3D microscope. They do. So I decided I don't want to do hand-drawn. I want to do 3D. I'm going to swap that out. Okay. And then the snapping is really nice. It's telling me these elements are all 419 pixels apart, which is a nice spacing. This is not centered though, so I can center it to my text. I can align it to the bottom of the other graphic. These dotted lines are just really, really helpful for a quick confidence check that I do have it lined up the way I want it. And if I'm still not sure on my alignment, I can then select all three of these and go to position, arrange. And let's say I want them all middle aligned. I just click middle. If I wanted them all bottom aligned, I'd click bottom, top, and they just quickly adjust to what I want. And if I want to make sure that they're spaced evenly horizontally, I can click horizontally, and that will make that adjustment as well. So these are all equally spaced. If I want to make sure that they are centered on the page, I can group them together and then center them, and it's going to auto center all three on the page. Once I've done that, I can then adjust where these texts fit to make sure that they line up properly as well. Okay, do we all understand about how that works? Do you have any questions on what I've talked about so far? Feel free to unmute yourself and just chat with me. I think that's probably the easiest way. I think.
Well, that was good. That was helpful.
Okay. If there's no questions about that, I think what I want to do with you guys now is I want to do a little brainstorm activity. So I'm going to switch over to this whiteboard and I'm going to give you all the link. So I'm going to copy this link and I've got it set to anyone with the link can edit. So this link that I'm copying to give to you will give you editing rights to this board. And I'll be able to see you all when you come into this board. And what I want to do is let you think about what it is you want to design today. So I've got 3 areas: printable worksheet, presentation, infographic. I think those will be good starting points. If you have something else you really want to do, feel free to just pull a sticky note off to the side, but grab a sticky note and type your ideas for what you want to make. You can do multiple if you want, and we can make our final decision at the end here of what we will be making. But think about, is this going to be a worksheet, a presentation, or an infographic? Some of you might want to dive into video. We can definitely talk about that as well. Videos are really easy to make in Canva. So just, yeah, what's something useful that you could make today and use it tomorrow? I want to make this as applicable as possible for you. It's really fun to see all of your cursors flying around the screen. Okay, I think I'm going to set a little timer here. We'll do this for 2 minutes. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, you'll have to commit to your idea. That's what you're going to make today. This little timer tool in Canva is really fun for live presentations. It's a nice visual.
So Callista,
Yes.
am I supposed to have like a my name on something, or like
Well,
if I want to do a printable worksheet maybe today, how do I do that?
just click one of these sticky notes.
The squares, okay.
Yeah, click on it, or you might have to double click, and then you can replace where it says add ideas here. You can replace that text with the idea for what you're going to make. What kind of worksheets is it going to be?
Oh, I see. So
Yeah, feel free to drag things around if you want to. Make them bigger if you want to. Yeah.
I'm having trouble actually seeing the text. How do you make it bigger?
If you want to, you can go up to the, when you, sorry, when you select the text, it brings up this toolbar up here at the top, and you can change the font, you can increase the size, you can change the color. All of your editing tools are up here. down to the wire.
How do you type in it?
If you double click.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah. All right. That was a quick 2 minutes. I'll let you guys wrap up your ideas real quick. And then maybe if you want to unmute yourself, you can tell me what it is you're planning to make today and we can share our thoughts. So what did you guys come up with? Let me see if I can see anybody here. Where's mine? Oh, make this bigger. There we go. I can see you guys now. All right, let's see. Amy, can you share what it is you're going to try and make today? I'm calling you out, Bren.
Sure. I think today I'm going to focus on a social emotional learning worksheet.
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually something that the Canva education creators are creating right now to try and make that part of our template library more robust. So hopefully you'll be able to find some useful starting places. Who else? How about Emily? Do you have an idea for what you're going to work on today? I don't know if you're in a place where you can unmute yourself or not, but you can put it in the chat if not. Let's see. George and Kenna, do you have ideas of what you're going to make? You're not off the hook.
I want to do mine on decision making under stress, the OODA loop.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's go. Okay, I'm gonna do an infographic today on, let's see, I'll do it on design principles since that's what we're gonna get into next. So go ahead and open up or go click on create design. And if you're gonna do a worksheet, let's see what happens when I type in worksheet. Yeah, there's a template for that, 8.5 by 11. If you wanna do a presentation, there's a couple options there. You can do 16 by 9, 4 by 3, mobile first, which I believe is the same as 16 by 9, but just vertical instead of horizontal. So you can pick one of those. There's no wrong answer. If you have a custom size you want to do, go ahead and put the custom size in. I'm going to do info. I think I started one already. Let's see. I think I was playing with this one. Yes. Okay. So while you are starting your design, I'm going to be talking about design principles. So I chose my infographic as my starting point. I'm going to give it a title because it still has the template title. So we're going to say design principles for beautiful graphics or beautiful course materials. That's better. Can I spell today? Yes, I can. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, so I've got the design principles title here, but I need to change this subtitle. So I'm going to double click that and say for making beautiful course materials. Okay, so now my titles match. And then we're going to start working through our design principles. So the first design principle I want to talk about is hierarchy. The hierarchy of information in your design is really important. I'm sure some of you already know this, but we'll just cover it real quickly. The question you want to ask is, which item on my page is the most important item? What's the first thing I want my learner to look at? So in this case, it would be my title. So I've given this title a lot of weight. It's a bold color. There's a lot of contrast to it. So your eye is going to go there. it's at the top of the design, which the eye will naturally start at the top and work its way down. You want to embrace those natural trained things. Because if you don't embrace them, the eye's going to go there anyway. And even if you wanted it to go somewhere else, it might not. So keep that in mind, especially when you're doing an infographic. I would say that a lot of amateur designers will place too much emphasis on other things in their design that are not where you want the starting point to be. It's like you have this idea in your head that everything's important, right? So it's like, I've got 3 or 4 things that this infographic is going to cover. So I want to make sure all of those have very important equal weight to them. We don't want to give everything equal weight. We want to give the starting point the heaviest weight. We want to make it as not confusing as possible. The next thing, I touched on it before, is alignment. We definitely want to make sure that the alignment of our document makes sense. And the thing I love about Canva is just how easy they make it to align things. So in this situation, I've got 2 text boxes here. And let's say I put them in by hand, right? So I'm actually I'm gonna delete these just to show you. You can go to the text tool over here on the left-hand sidebar, and you can click add a text box, which is just gonna plop a standard text box in the middle of your page, which you can then drag and drop wherever you want. Or you can use one of their preset default text styles. A heading is gonna be a bigger size. A subheading will be a smaller size. And then a little bit of body text is even smaller. And you'll notice it auto snapped that body text to my subheading because it is very smart. And it recognized that I was stacking my items over here manually. So if you do 2 manual placements, it will guess where you want the 3rd one to go, which is really cool. Sometimes it may guess wrong, but a lot of times it guesses correctly, which is always surprising and fun. So let's say I want to make sure these are all left aligned. They are, that's why the left alignment is grayed out. If I wanted them center aligned, I would click there, right aligned there. And now that I have all 3 of these selected, I can resize them just by clicking on that corner piece. Another thing I love about Canva is that you don't have to worry so much about something that has always bothered me in things like Word documents, where if you go to resize something, sometimes it gets squished and it doesn't retain its shape unless you hold down Shift. Canva knows that designers don't want things squashed and stretched, not on purpose or not on accident anyway. So it will auto lock that what's the word I'm looking for? The shape of it, the size of it. So that's nice though. The ratio, yeah, you can lock the ratio too if you need to, but I think it does it automatically. Let's see what else. Yeah, definitely make sure you're using your alignment tools because it makes your design feel more anchored and intentional. I can spot an amateur design a mile away because things just are not aligned well or at all. Consistency is another design principle. So I'll type that in here since it didn't auto-populate it in the template. Consistency. I'm not spelling that right. Consistency. I can see what I'm doing, I promise. Okay, I'm gonna left align these. I'm gonna make sure all my text is also left aligned just so it looks really nice. And I don't need a subtitle for this. So I'm gonna make my text box a little bit bigger. Notice when I'm dragging my text box, this purple rectangle pops up as I'm hitting that margin right there. That is a built-in safe area. So Canva likes to make it really clear that this is where the safe printable zone is. If you go outside of that with your text, there's a chance that if this were printed, that text would get cut off. So I typically try to stay inside that box with my text. So if you notice this one was outside the box, I can just drag it in and it'll snap right to that. This one's outside the box too. So I'll snap it over here. And then I can just rework my text, the size of the text, whatever I need to do to make it look nice again. Let's see. So consistency is a good thing to keep in mind when it comes to style. So we want a cohesiveness, cohesive style. So that includes color scheme, kind of like what we talked about earlier. Limited number of fonts. Some people really love their fonts and they think that giving a different font to every item on the list is fun and engaging and exciting, but really all it is confusing and distracting. So I typically don't use more than 3 fonts in one design. I think 2 is probably even better. Just having like a bold and then a regular or thin font. Sometimes I'll even just use 1 font and play with the styles of that 1 font to give it that interest level and hierarchy that I'm looking for. But definitely we don't want a whole bunch of fonts in here. So I think this template has 2 fonts in it. So you'll see it when you click on it that this font up here changed. So that's kind of what we got. When I used the text box auto add, it always defaults to Canva sans when you use these tools. So you will want to make sure that anything you add using the Canva built-in tool, you then switch it to one of your fonts. But the cool thing is that it'll tell you what fonts are in your document if you go to edit the font. So it's saying the fonts that are already here are this one and this one. So this was my title font. Here's how it looks if I use that. And here's how it looks if I use that. For this one, because of the hierarchy, I'm only going to use the super bold font at the top. Everything else, I'm going to use this one and just play with the style of it. So I'll make it a little bit bolder since it's a heading. And that works for that. My color scheme for this one, let's see what it's set to. If I go to design and style, it's showing me under recently used that this is the color scheme on this document right now. If I don't love it, I can shuffle it. It's going to keep all the same colors, just in slightly different usages. If I want to change it completely, I can look at all these suggestions that it's giving me. Let's try it with this one. That's very bright and very fun. That one's more subdued. It changed my fonts as well because it's got different fonts. I think I still liked the one I had before. So we're going to go back to that one, but I liked it better with the dark on the bottom. So there we go. I think that has some nice weight to it at the top and the bottom. It just feels better to me. It's a lot of design, there's feeling in it, right? We all have our own intuition when it comes to how things look, and that's totally fine. It's a subjective thing. Let's see. We can also utilize a cool tool that's relatively new. If you can see this icon down in my bottom right of my screen, this is the new Canva Assistant. You can click it or you can use the hotkey, which is that / key. So when I click on this, it just pops up right on top of my design. I can search for anything that I want right here. And then I can also use the recommended actions. If you see this golden crown, that means it's a pro feature. If you have an EDU account, an educator account, the pro features are included. If you have a free account, then this is not something you can utilize. They're nice to have, they're fun to play with, but you can still do a lot with the free account. So just to give you a little taste of some of the AI stuff that they're building into Canva, this is the Magic Write tool. Say I didn't know exactly what I wanted my copy to say on the design. I could try this out and it would generate some text for me. So use 5 or more words to describe what you want to write. I'll say a quick overview of the design principles. Enter, and it just spit out all this text for me. I can't see it though because it's on there. So I'm going to give it a box behind it just so we can read what it generated for us. Make that a little easier to read, make it white. And then I'll push it backward. There we go. So it generated this. It says, design principles are the fundamental guidelines that designers follow to create effective and aesthetically pleasing designs. That's accurate. There are various design principles, including balance, contrast, hierarchy, unity, proportion, and white space. Also accurate. So you'll notice this is AI generated text. It's being pulled from the internet. And most of the time it's pretty on point. If you get more complex, it might not be totally accurate. So you definitely need to know your content that you're going for, but it helps as a launch pad for the creative process. So you don't get bogged down in where do I start? Sometimes it's a nice way to just get the ball rolling. Some other tools, you can click on show more and it gives you other options here. They're working on adding this translate feature. So say I needed this to be in Spanish, I could use that to really kickstart my translation process. They've added drawing tools so you can just freehand draw on the page. So like these squiggly lines, if I wanted it to be a slightly different squiggly line, I could do one of those instead. Let's see what else. You've got your hotkeys for creating shapes really quickly. So R will give you a rectangle, C will give you a circle. Just trying to make that design process really quick and easy. They've got charts. They've got all kinds of fun stuff in here. So let's see. The other cool thing about here, if you scroll down a little further, it's showing me that there's other elements in the library that look similar to what I've already got in my document. So maybe I want to add this element. That's a really nice suggestion. Oh, I'm still in my draw tool. Let me get out of there. I don't want to draw anymore. Okay, so I can pull that in and kind of reposition it, resize it easily to decide where I want it to go. Okay, and then the other thing it did at the bottom, whoop. Oh, it said see all. So then it opens up the magic recommendations of elements. So you can see all these elements. It's saying these might look nice in your design. Yeah, Paige says she loves the undo button. Yes, the undo button is my best friend. Okay. So it also is suggesting some photographs that I might want to include. And it uses the colors and everything that are in my document. And it even looks at the content of my document. And it's going to say, you know, maybe you need some smiling people on here. And then it's also adding these other design elements that are not editable elements. They're just photograph style elements. So if I pull this in, I can't change the shape of it, but I can edit the color of it, which is cool. I can crop it and flip it too, which is kind of nice. But it doesn't have that illustration quality to it like the other ones did. Gosh, there's so many things to talk about. Where do I go next? Let's see. For this one, I would want to be careful about the elements I pull in. So I don't have any other photographs on here, so I'm probably not going to want to add photographs to this one. So I would stick with the more graphic line work that we've got here already, just for that cohesiveness we were talking about. And another thing to mention with cohesiveness is that if you're doing a multiple page project, so like I added a second page, I could click here, it's going to give me a blank page, or I can click duplicate page if I want to start with the same layout and just edit the content. That will make sure you've got cohesiveness across all the pages. And Contrast, we kind of talked about a little bit already. That means using dark versus light, big versus small, thick versus thin. These are some easy ways to make sure there's interest in the visual aspect of your design. A big one that a lot of amateur designers forget about is the use of negative space. So if you'll look at this design, there's a lot here, but we've got a couple of what I like to call breathing space, like places where your eye can breathe. So we're not filling every single inch of the document with content. In fact, I feel like there's maybe a few too many squiggles. I don't particularly love this squiggle here in the middle. So either I can make it smaller, or I can just delete it altogether. I tend to be a minimalist in my designs, so too many squiggles is going to drive me crazy. The ones at the top I don't mind because they're kind of framing my text, so they can stay. But for the rest of the document, I kind of like it better with just a lot of room to breathe. That's a personal preference. You might like yours a little less empty. But again, the focus needs to be on the content. So just make sure that the eye is going to what's most important. And don't fill up the whole thing with clutter. When it gets cluttered, the impression that is given is that it's very busy and I don't always know where to look first. When you edit it and scale it back, it has a more elegant feel to it. The eye can kind of relax. It's not bouncing around so much. And that gives your viewer more the ability to retain that information and absorb it better. Symmetry is a good thing to talk about too. So here our content is kind of in a zigzag pattern. We've got some left aligned, some right aligned. That is still creating symmetry in the sense that I can draw a line down the middle and there's an equal amount of weight on either side of the design. It doesn't mean that I could cut it in half and it would be mirrored, you know, just that it feels balanced. Does the spacing in between my items make sense? That's kind of what we were seeing before with those alignment tools popping up. So this here is telling me I've got 94 pixels here and here. So let's say I like that. I can click this one and drag it up until it says 94. Now that's all the same. I can draw this up. And if you hold the shift button down when you're dragging, it will keep it snapped. If you're wanting to go vertical or horizontal, that's a nice little tip. Because sometimes you go off and now you're not centered anymore. And that can be a little extra work. But shift can help keep things aligned a bit better. The other cool thing is if I group these little sections of content and then say, I know I want my top group to be right here. And I know I want my bottom group to be right here. I can select all of it and do a vertical alignment, and the other two groups will snap into the perfect place. And then I can also say, I want to make sure that these two are left aligned. They are, that's good. I want to make sure these two are right aligned. They're not. So I want to see that like little pixel shift. It can make all the difference just to make sure you check on those things to make it feel more professional. Another important thing is tangents. This is something I see in a lot of amateur designs as well. So let's say I really liked this swirl and so I wanted to make it bigger. But what's happening is it's now running into my title. And if I zoom in here, you'll see it's actually kind of overlapping, but not in an intentional way. And what they call this is a tangent, where they're touching, but it's not really on purpose. And so it's forcing the eye to go there, when really that's not what I want the eye to do. So it's good to make sure that things have enough space between them that they're not running into each other in a way that you don't want them to. Now you can make things overlap, and that's fine as long as you're doing it on purpose, you know. So you just want to make sure that there's not that awkwardness or that unintentional distraction of elements colliding with each other in a way you didn't mean them to. And then I think the last thing I'll say about this is just density of information. So you'll notice here, like this got a little long and then it's running into that loop-de-loop. So that's a tangent right there. As you can see, it's kind of distracting. I'll zoom in. That doesn't look like you did it on purpose, right? So either I would move this or get rid of it. And then the density of my information might be a little heavy. And that's when you need to make the decision on, does this need to be a multi-page document? Do I have so much information that I really, really can't cut any of it at all? Well, let's lay it out onto 2 pages now so that I can create that balance and that white space, that breathing room for the eye. It's better for it to be a 2-page document than to be everything squished onto 1 page. If you're in a situation where it can't be more than 1 page, then I would definitely play with the size of your text. It's probably not great to go below a 10-point font, because especially depending on your audience, that's going to get really hard to read. I try to keep it around 12. If it's going to be a video or a presentation on a screen, I really don't like to go lower than 24 would probably be the smallest. I tend to go 36 to make sure it's very legible. These are just things that I've learned along the way. If it's not a presentation where I can zoom in on it, I want to make sure that everyone in the audience can see it and read it. So it's not worth it to me to squish it all onto 1 page and just make that font super tiny. I would then take that opportunity to make it bigger, spread it out across more pages, and just make it more user-friendly, viewer-friendly. Okay, we talked about the margins already, so I'll just emphasize it one more time. Like, working within this margin area just solidifies the fact that you are not running into any danger zones for printing purposes. Your decorative elements can go outside of that, but your content should try to stay inside of that. And then an accessibility point here that I want to touch. Font legibility matters. The more scripty your font gets, it might be beautiful, but it might not be legible. So you definitely want to prioritize legibility over what you think is beautiful in this sense, especially if you're creating content for a learner. You don't want to do anything that could potentially exclude anyone from engaging with it. Color contrast is another big one. There's tools that you can use. I think I've got one built in here on my extensions. Do I? Maybe not. There's lots of websites you can use for color contrast checking. You just type that in. And WebAIM is a great tool. What you can do here is actually type in the color code that you're using for the background and foreground colors, and it'll give you the contrast ratio. And if it's green, it'll pass, and it'll say everyone will be able to read this because the color contrast is good. If I were to lighten that to this shade of blue, now I'm failing. Like, this is what it would look like with that on a white background. So that's a big fail. No one's going to be able to read that easily. If you're using a light text color, then you want to make sure you go dark on your background. So there's a pretty big window there. I think the minimum is 7:1, if I remember correctly. Yeah, for AAA, it's 7:1. If your institution doesn't require a AAA rating, you can go a little bit lighter. So like 4.5. But typically I try to go for AAA wherever I can, just to make sure I'm checking all the boxes and making it very, very accessible. Let's see what else. Screen reader friendliness. So in Canva, when you share out the view only link, the screen reader, when it's viewing it on the web, it'll start at the top of the design and work its way down, and it'll read all the text on the screen, which is really cool. For my purposes with this infographic, I would download it as a PDF. So that's here. You can do standard or print settings. I usually go for print. And then I would take that PDF into Adobe Acrobat and use their accessibility tools in the pro version of Acrobat to really go into the document and make sure everything is super accessible. So Canva will provide some screen reader friendliness. I haven't recently tested it out to see how good it is, but I know they're constantly improving it. I know that it does work with the built-in Mac reader, which is not the best reader on the market for sure, but for a quick test, you can kind of get an idea of what someone would hear if they were looking at this with a screen reader. So yeah, pretty friendly for that. Does anybody have any questions about what they're working on right now? Has anybody made progress on their own design yet? Or have you just been listening? It's okay if you've just been listening. But if anybody is interested at any point in the next hour or so that they want to share it with me, what you can do is go to share, change. What I would like you to do is change it to anyone with the link can edit, and then copy that link for me and just drop it in the chat. If you have to leave, that's totally fine. I'm super happy you were able to make it. Hopefully you learned some new tricks. I'm sure there's more, so you'll get the recording later. But thanks for coming. So yeah, anyone who wants to have me look at their design and talk through it, just copy this link and put it in the chat for me. And I'll open it up and we can talk about it. If you need a few more minutes, that's totally fine. And it doesn't have to be perfect, whatever you're working on, whatever state it's in. It's still worth us looking at it and talking about it, because I'm sure I'll think of more things to share as I'm looking at what you've made. Totally fine, Carla. Take your time. Take your time. I'm trying to think of what else I can talk about while you guys are working. I don't want to distract you, but thanks for coming, Alexis. Okay, Amy is sharing. Thanks, Amy. Let's see what you got here. Oh, this is cool. Okay, so just first impressions. I want to hear from the group. Looking at this, what's your first thought? And it can be anything. Just what impression is this giving you? I've got a thumbs up from Paige. That's great. Kenna or George, do you have any first impressions you want to share?
I totally was drawn into it right away, just from the feeling happy and the yellow border there. Mm-hmm. And then it looked like I was going to do something with the face because it was missing an element. So it drew me right into it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I reacted immediately to that bright yellow color as well. The fact that it says feeling happy at the top really fits well with the color choice, I think. I think it's pretty universal that yellow is a happy color, at least in our culture. I think that it's pretty clear what it is you want them to do here. The instructions are good. One suggestion I would make, if this is going to be a printable, I probably would not do a border necessarily, or I would just make sure the border goes all the way to the edges, because it is going to get cut off anyway. But the printer's going to do what it's going to do. But the cool thing is in Canva, you could, if they have Chromebooks, share this with them as an editable template, and they could use the draw tool in Canva to draw the happy face. What does your face look like when you're happy? I love that. That's really cute. So I'm actually gonna draw my happy face. Yay. Just for fun. Oh, that went the wrong way. Undo. Yay. How cute. And if you were to share this with the student as an editable template, they could also potentially go in and change the colors and the way that the face looks to make it look just like themselves. So for me, I'd want to, let's see, I'm pretty pale. So we'll give her some pale skin and some reddish hair. Well, maybe not that red. Well, that's fine. So see how they could really play with this in an interactive way. And then that prevents you from having to make 20 versions of it for each kid to feel represented. Thanks for coming, Daniel. Let's see, what else?
One of the things I like most so far about Canva is they have a lot more options for different ethnicities, different hairstyles.
Yes. Yes.
It's fabulous. We've been working with just Pixably and stuff like that to create a journal, and it's been challenging to find different hairstyles.
Yeah, for sure. Like the different, especially free stock resources, there's definitely limitations there. It's getting better as people who are using it are demanding more diversity and representation. That's something that I'm noticing even in our paid stock accounts. When we first started using paid stock, the diversity just wasn't there. And over the years, it's increased and gotten better. And I think that's purely based off of the demand for it. So we as designers have some power over that. We can keep asking for it and people will start making it because that's what we want. But Canva, yeah, it's definitely got a lot already built into it, and it's super easy to customize, especially now with the draw tool in there. Even if you have rudimentary drawing skills, like you can do a lot with it. I think you made a lot of great choices on here. There's lots of breathing room, some negative space. There's clear instructions. You've got this arrow here to make sure they understand you want them to draw it here. That was really great. And then draw 4 things that make you feel happy. You gave them a nice space to do that. I'm curious too, since this looks like it was made for a quote, I'm curious if I can edit out the quotes. I know. Let's see, editing your image may be able to change individual colors. Okay, I don't know if I really care about that. They have a smart mockup tool too. I don't know if that's just for pro users, but sometimes you can go in and magic edit. But it looks like this is a graphic, so it's not going to let me do that. Let's see. Can I convert this? Something I've never tried to do is convert a graphic into an image. I know how to do it in Photoshop and Illustrator. I think I'm going to have to make a note for myself to figure out how to do that, because that's something I want to be able to do in Canva as well. But say I didn't want these and I can't edit it out. What I can do is create a white box and just cover it. Especially if this is for printing, no one would ever know it was there. And if it's not for printing, then what I would do, since they'll be in here interacting with it, is I'll select those 2 boxes and that background, and I'll group them. So now it feels like they're not there, even though they are. You'll still be able to see them when you go into the layers, but they're grouped. So you don't have to worry too much about someone selecting it and moving it. All right, any other comments? Any other questions?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes. Hi, Elena.
Hi. I love the concept of the worksheet. This is something that I would use.
Okay.
I'm not sure what grade level this is for, but I'm thinking and what the purpose of the worksheet is for, exactly what the specific objective is. But is it to allow the students some time to analyze themselves and analyze how they look and how they feel. And if so, I would maybe take the little boy at the top out,
Okay.
because kindergartners and first graders, they tend to copy everything that they see. So if they're not at that point where they're able to analyze and really answer a constructive response question, then that might prompt them to just copy.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. And I think that's a great point, and something that you always need to keep in mind is your target audience, right? So yeah, if you know that you're working with little kids who don't have that cognitive ability yet to really become self-aware, they're just looking to parrot and do whatever's being modeled for them, then that is something to consider, of like, what cues are you giving them? So I agree with you on this. The younger age, maybe putting that little graphic at the top might help have them skip a step, right? Of really thinking about, how do I look when I'm happy? I definitely look like that, So I could see how that could go either way. In terms of design, I think it's fun to include little characters and things like that. Maybe another thing that could go well with this is a sheet where it has different characters with different emotions, and then they have to circle the ones that are happy, showing them the contrasting emotions. That could work well for this as well. What does happy not look like? That might be a good second page to this worksheet. Okay, let's see. Does anybody else have anything they want to share, either about this design, or if they want to share, you want to share your own design? That would be good too. Okay, thanks for sharing that, Amy. I appreciate it. Let's go. Okay, George, let's see what you've been working on.
Totally unfinished, but
Totally fine. We can
I would
see.
love to see what you do with it.
Okay, so you started with a template, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this is something familiar to me from their template library. I think the dead giveaway is the learn more at reallyGreatSite.com. You'll see that in a lot of their templates. I'll zoom in here at the bottom, reallyGreatSite.com. So obviously there's some great stuff going on here. We've got a nice contrast on the title at the top, the subtitle underneath. And I think there's a great amount of white space, balance, symmetry going on. I like how the colors correspond to the part of the squiggle, is what I'll call it. So the color story is really pretty. Because this was a template, it probably took you no time at all to pop your information in.
And if I tried to make something like that on my own, I wouldn't have any hair left after a half hour.
Right? Exactly. And that's kind of my favorite thing about Canva, is it takes the hard part and condenses it. So like, for people who are not graphic designers, you don't want to spend an hour just trying to figure out what looks good. You can grab a template that you already know looks good and put your content in there. Like it really doesn't get any easier than that.
Amy brought up a point that she opened Canva Pro today and she made the previous one
From scratch.
in like 10 minutes from scratch, just boom. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome. And how cool is that this is a tool that can empower you to feel capable to do that, right? I think that's why I tend to open Canva now before I open Photoshop or Illustrator, because it makes me feel like I'm going to get the work done faster and I know it's going to look good. Like the confidence level is just way higher.
Yeah, I feel like I'm supported.
Yeah, exactly. Like even if you were unsure about what it needed to look like, just a quick glimpse at this template library and you've got a great place to start. And the cool thing too here is like what I showed you before with the styles, these preset palettes are just really fun. Some of them don't work perfectly, but it's super easy to change it. Now this one needs to have a light background because we've got that drop shadow, but undo, 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 and we get back to where we were. Like Paige said. And yeah, like I said before, if you decide to swap out your font, that's always really easy too. What's this one? I don't want it to be extra light. That's hard to read. Okay, I want to make it a little bit bolder. So change them all to make them a little bit bolder. Font changed across your design. So cool. Okay, so I don't have a lot of critique on this one. Maybe here, you know, in terms of designer speak, having one word at the bottom, that's called an orphan, or sometimes depending on how it's laid out, it could be called a widow as well. So I try to avoid that by either, you know, making sure it pops up onto that line or making sure something else pops down, just so you don't have one word hanging out by itself. Nowadays, with social media being so casual, like people are more inclined to accept those things that would have been considered a mistake in graphic design in the past. I still like to lean on my training and not have orphans and widows in my documents, but you can get away with more nowadays. Things my instructors would have been mad at. Let's see. Something else that I think is worth talking about is they've got some more AI tools. I want to touch on this really quickly. If I just open up a blank presentation, I was sharing this with my team recently. It's really cool. The Magic Design tool. Say I need to do a presentation on, well, we'll just stick with design principles for now, since that's off the top of my head. Let's see what it does with that. So all I put in there was design principles, just 2 words. And it's coming up with all these ideas for presentations that I can give on design principles. And the cool thing is it's generating multiple slides for me. So I can go ahead and say, yeah, wow, I like that. I'm gonna create that presentation. I don't like this image though, so I'm just gonna swap that out. We'll say design photo. This one's better. Plop. I don't really care for this little square or these lines, so I'm just gonna get rid of those. And then I want some more color contrast, so I'll go with my brand color blue. And I'll go with my brand font, which for us is Proxima Nova. Easy peasy. And I can apply those changes across my whole design. And it just generated a whole presentation for me.
Wow.
Yeah. I did not use that for our presentation slides, but I could have. And then say, I like some of the ideas I'm seeing down here. So like, ooh, this watercolor one is pretty. I could apply that instead and replace all the pages. How pretty.
Wow.
So it just has some very quick and easy things that you can do with AI. I'm trying to think, there's some other ones too in the apps. You can discover all of their add-on apps. They have one that's new called text to image. I haven't had the most success with it. It tends to mess up on things like humans. But if you're going for something more abstract or like everyday objects, you might have better luck with that than trying to generate people. It doesn't seem to know how many fingers we have or how noses fit on the face. But anyways, that was just a quick little detour.
Getting close.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Rebecca added something for us to look at. What do we got? Ooh, fun. Okay. I see you've got your logo here at the top. That's awesome. I'm gonna zoom in. Does anybody have a first impression they want to share before I dive into my thoughts? What do we think about this design? Can I pick on Efren?
Oh.
Are you there, Efren? What do you think?
I am. I can see that there's your brand colors mixing in there because you have your 4 colors up there on the top. I like that.
Yep.
Let's see. I guess right now all the fonts, it looks good. Could you scroll a little bit down? I think I see some. Is there a bottom part too?
Yeah, there's another page. Cute little guy here.
This looks great. It has that. It's kind of working together right now. Now that I'm looking at it, let's
There's
go
another page.
down.
Oh, that's fun. Is this an actual image of his writing?
Yeah, it's like a frame you can use, and then I dropped in the image element in the frame.
Nice. Yes. That's something I was hoping someone would try so we could talk about it. I'm going to click on this real quick. Let's see. Oop, it's got
Yeah, you can mess around. I made a copy of it so you could destroy it. It's okay.
Well, I won't destroy it. It's very pretty. Let's see. Okay. I think I agree with Efren on the sense that I love how you worked your brand colors into it. Amy mentioned she's having trouble reading the presentation of learning title. And I'm gonna go on a limb and say that's just because there's an offset between the color and the line. It's not necessarily wrong or bad, but when you have this little separation here, it can cause a little bit of visual confusion. So it is a style choice. I would say if you wanted to emphasize that style choice, I would represent it in the graphics that I use as well. So like this little easel here, I try to find one that had an outline to it so that they look like they go together, and maybe even add an outline to this photo, just kind of make sure that element is going throughout. This one here, is this an element? Is this an element or an image you've dropped in?
That was an image I created somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, if this is something that is, say, present in other materials that you've made, I would just want to make sure that we're echoing some of these colors as well. So like this green is different from that green. Not necessarily wrong, like I said before, but just making sure it's not only in one place will create more cohesion. Cohesiveness. Cohesion? Now I'm doubting my word choice. But that's looking really nice. I like the layout of it. I would say what's your target audience for this? Is this a teacher resource?
It's like a school, like newsletter sort of thing.
Okay. So I would say the font size is probably, well, it's definitely smaller than I would go. I would go no smaller than 10 if it were me. And you'll see the difference just in legibility here when I bump it up. So even just that little bump is going to be helpful. And so because if this is pushing this down now, what I can do is change the line spacing. So it's at 1.9 something. I can just bring that down even 1/10 of a point. And now it's back in my margin zone. So same content, didn't even have to rearrange it, just played with the size and the spacing just to give it a little bit more legibility. So that's something I would keep in mind for sure on the other pages as well. What's happening here?
I have a question. So, like, so some of the background images make it hard to read the front layer.
Yes.
Is there a fast way to like reverse that or change layers to change the transparency without like having to move everything over? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you can kind of go to your layer panel, it's under position, and see how things are laying. When you click on there, the transparency is here. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes trying to like slide layers over, but seeing this, I don't have to move them over.
Yeah, you don't have to move them at all. You can just go into your layer panel. When I found this layer panel for the first time, I almost cried.
Yeah, I didn't ever notice it. I've used it for like 5 years. I'm like, how did you get
It's a
that?
little buried. It's a little buried. And it has this cool tool also where you can sort it by overlapping elements. So if you're really having trouble selecting something or figuring out what you're looking at, you can choose how you want to look at it. So all of these layers have something overlapping. Whereas if you go to all, not all of these have overlapping elements. So it's kind of a nice, quick shortcut. See what you made.
I used the magic right, and that's what it gave me for the first piece. I just wanted to leave that in there to show an example. But I gave it the first sentence, and then it spit out like everything under that. And so I used that to make the infographic.
Okay, so then from there you created this. Very cool. Okay, so you're playing with a couple different concepts here. I will ask the group, what are some of the first things you're noticing? Don't be shy. Peggy says, wow.
It was a template, Peggy. Don't worry, I didn't work that hard on
You
it.
started with a template, but it has wow factor, right? So why not? What are some other things we're noticing? Do we see any things that we need to fix? Is the font size okay? How's the color contrast? Do we see any tangents anywhere? I agree with Rebecca that the contrast is probably not high enough for accessibility purposes. It's a nice color scheme though, so it might be tempting to just stick with it. I think what I would do, or let me ask, what would you do, Rebecca, for color contrast?
I would just like use a different background maybe, or just like a lighter tone of that, like, or make it more transparent or something. That's always easier. Or yeah, just slide it to the left or something.
To the left. Already it's improved a lot and we didn't have to do much. I would say that having the lighter color in the background, now these images aren't popping as much. Something that you could do with, well, this one's popping just fine because it's got darker colors, but the ones with the white on them, I think that I would maybe add a little box behind it with a darker color. You could play with shapes here. So I really love using blobs. So you just search for a blob and you get all kinds of different blobs. Some of them are really fun. Some of them are just very simple. And let's see, for this one, I'll just grab a simple blob. We don't want to be too blobby. Put that behind me. And then pick our dark blue for that. Would you say that that's helping or hurting? Too blobby? Yes, I don't want it to be too blobby. What can I say? And then the other fun thing with blobs is that you can pick totally different shaped blobs, but they still look like they go together, even though they don't match. It just creates a little bit of visual interest. So, yeah. Now, my next question is going to be, do we want all of these to be aligned? Or do we want them not to be aligned? I'm thinking we probably want to keep them aligned because I liked the balance you had in here before. So I can adjust my blobs accordingly. Okay. And then we could also use this opportunity to introduce another color. I don't think we necessarily need to for this one, but could be fun. I think alignment of the text within the boxes needs to be checked out. So here we've got it centered 58. And then the other thing I'm noticing too is the distance between the header and so here, if I drag it a little bit, I can see there's a 10. This one is definitely not a 10. Okay, now it is. So then I can resize to where it's centered. 45, sure. Okay, let's see if this one's at 10. There we go. And then is it centered? 22, 23. And those numbers will be slightly different because this one's 3 lines, this one's 2 lines. That's quite all right. We just want to go for consistency and balance. Oh, that's pretty good. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you get the idea. And then I'll go back and I'll left align these. There we go. Snapped perfectly. They're left aligned here. And then these ones, even though it looks like I should right align them, I'm still going to left align them because the text is left aligned with the ones below it. I could right align them, but then that's going to create even more distance. So let me show you what happens if I switch this to a right. Okay, sorry. Well, that's nice. They were the same size. But see what happens there? Now the weight, to me, feels off balance. Would you agree? Because now we have a lot of white space here. And the eye is like, why? Why is there so much blank space here? Because I want the text to be there. It's just like a, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. This one. It's part of embracing that natural eye movement. And then I'm noticing too, it's not in the margin, the safe space. Oh, I set it to just there. So if I pull it into the margin safe space, it's going to kick it down to 3 lines. So that means I have to recenter it. Where's the middle point? 44, 41. Okay. So don't be afraid to make those kinds of adjustments just to make sure you're in your safe zone. Oh, don't want an orphan. Maybe that feels better to me. Okay. Let's see, it's 11:37. So I want to open it up to the group. Is there anything else you'd like me to see demo before we run out of time? I think this design is good. It's going in the right direction. Let's see, maybe I'll go back up to where we said what we want to look at. I know I saw some questions about interactivity. There's a lot in the chat. That's good. Okay. Let me scroll up a little bit. Yes, I also wish that Canva had the accessibility tools built in. I wouldn't be surprised to see if that's coming. I did see a comment in here about adding CC to videos. I know that that captioning feature is available to EDU accounts. I don't think it's available to all accounts. So if you have an EDU account, you should be able to find it. I know it's in the help tools. If you go to the Canva help, it'll give you the step-by-step where you can find it in the menus. But again, it's just for educators at the moment who have the Canva for Educators account. Let's see, maybe George and Kenna, you can help me find some of the things in the chat that I wasn't seeing. Or if you know you wrote something in the chat and I didn't answer it yet, just shout it out to me. George made a comment in the chat. I don't know if you all saw it, that a lot of our videos and clickable presentations, we're now embedding them directly so that when we edit them, there's no extra work on the other end of having to update them in the LMS. anything we embed into the LMS will automatically update when we make changes to it, which is a nice live feature. But then you have to be careful if you want to like use something as a starting point, make sure you make a copy of it and you don't end up editing the one that's embedded in the course. So it's good to like have those organized to a folder.
I'll be off.
What was that, George?
I'm sorry. Rebecca asked, have you done much with creating a Canva class for students to work and access together or independently on assignments?
So we have been utilizing the template feature where we create the document we want them to use and we share it as a template. Then they can open that in Canva and do whatever they want with it. So like Amy's worksheet, I would use the share template button. So let me show you real quick. Share template link. And then you would just copy this. I'll show you what it looks like when they open it. It's going to get this prompt. Well, it's showing a preview of her first slide instead of the second slide, but the image would be here of what the worksheet looks like. So, and it tells you a template was created by this person, they're sharing it with you, and then they can just click use it. And the feature is called remixing. So they're using their template that's called remixing. It'll say that it's a copy of her file and they'll be able to see it as you designed it, but then they can do whatever they want with it. So let me see if I can pull up an example of one real quick that I've made. Where's my latest template? So let's do, was it this one? No, it wasn't that one. You're getting a preview of all the things I've been making in Canva. There's quite a variety of things. Oh, here's one. So this was a worksheet on how to use or how to write a SMART goal. So I would share this as a template and they can type directly into this box the different elements of their SMART goal. And then they could print this out or they could share it back to me so I could see it as their instructor. Let's see, Carla says, can URLs only be linked on PDF documents? So yeah, if you're sharing it out as a PDF, then the links will be live. As soon as you compress it into an image file, those links go away. Videos, however, well, yeah, no, video as well. The links will stay live in PDFs or presentations. So like in our presentation doc, is it this one? Yes. If I wanted to have you click on something like I'm going to share this slide deck out into my course, they would be able to click the links that are in it. But as far as compressing it into an image, you're just going to get an image. And that's the same for any design tool. Any other burning questions? Or did I answer that question well enough about the interactivity? Were you thinking of more of like what we did on the brainstorming where you share a live link and you're all in there together? Because that's something you can do as well. Like they've introduced recently these whiteboard spaces. And I think that scratches that itch a lot because you can do a lot with these whiteboards and they have a lot of templates in here already with activities. So brainstorming made sense to me to use this because we could all be in there together. But I've seen some other cool ones where they're set up for meetings. There are some education specific ones. It's giving me business ones right now because that's what I was looking for. But you can do like image boards. Like this is for brand identity where you just pull images from the internet and people can be working in there simultaneously, plugging them in. I can think of lots of ways to use that. Do you guys have any ideas off the top of your head of how you would use a whiteboard space for in-class activity? I'm not sure what grades you would normally work with. So obviously I'm stuck with higher ed, but I know we've got different age groups on here. I know, Amy, you're a tutor. So how could you see using a whiteboard activity as a tutor?
Honestly, we use actual whiteboard activities.
Exactly. So
Quite-
anything that would work there would work here, right?
Right, exactly. So we do a lot of games, a lot of lessons, a lot of I play a Jeopardy game with students using whiteboards.
That would be fun.
Yeah. We do a lot of silly sentences is what we call it, where one person writes the subject and the other person writes the action. And you put them in different buckets and then you pull out random ones. So it makes a really funny sentence that doesn't make sense. So we do stuff like that. You can also do that on a whiteboard with just students taking turns writing and changing the subject or action of the sentence.
Nice. So yeah, like in a pandemic setting where you can't be at a whiteboard, that could easily translate into Canva as a on Zoom activity. Is there anything else burning, questions or things I haven't demoed that you really want to see? Are there any tools that you guys use regularly that we haven't talked about?
Have you ever moved a presentation to like a movie or a document to a presentation?
Yes. So this one in particular, when you create a presentation, you have different settings available. So you can actually autoplay it so that it plays kind of like a video instead of you having to click through it. And I believe you can even export it as different things. So you can export it as a PDF. You can export it for PowerPoint. You can export it as a video. So that's all built in to the presentation. I've also come across where I started something as a presentation and then decided that I wanted it to be just a vertical video. And so when I resized it to the vertical video size, which I think is down here, it's one of these settings. I just clicked it and said resize, and it automatically changed it into video format for me. I've done that unintentionally as well, where I just did a custom resize and it assumed what I wanted and turned it into a different format. And I was like, wait a second, I still want to be able to click it. I don't want it to autoplay. And so I had to fight with it a little bit to get my clicking back. But I just thought it was funny that it was trying to read my mind. So yes, you can definitely do that. George, Kenneth, is there anything else you think is cool that I should talk about right now? I know there's still so much we could dive into, but I think for today we've covered quite a bit of ground. So that might be a good place to take a breather. We can definitely do this again too.
Is there something like where a chart or someplace to go where you can get the sizing like in inches? So say, yeah, I'm familiar with 8.5 by 11, you know, where.
So this is right here.
Okay.
Its standard is set to pixels, but if you click it, you've got inches, millimeters, and centimeters.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So like a presentation document is going to default to pixel, but if I chose a template that was a printable worksheet, I think it defaults to inches in that scenario.
Okay.
I can confirm that it does.
Okay, you confirm that it does. Good. But it is an easy thing to switch if it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
All right, shall I close us out? We have a couple of things. If you remember at the beginning, we talked about utilize being the ending. So let me present here. We just finished our practice section. So for utilize, we have decided to host a contest. So we're doing an instructional media design contest. Now you all have expert level skills in Canva. You know how to make things. We are going to push the requirement a little bit here that it be something original. So I know we talked about templates today, but if you start from a template, I would ask that it be changed enough that it is something original that you are proud of. But we want to celebrate that educators are making media for learners. So we are asking that you would submit something that you made from Canva that is visually appealing and effective as a teaching resource. Feel free to tell your friends if you have teacher friends. There will be prizes. We're going to be sending out the contest form, the submission form with all the official rules to all the participants who registered for today's webinar, workshop, whatever you want to call this, masterclass. We're hoping to get a lot of fun submissions just to see what people are making and how they're making the classroom more fun and engaging, and making learning beautiful is what I'm all about. So I'm excited to see what you guys make and hopefully submit for a chance to win a prize. So those details will be coming to you shortly, hopefully today, if not tomorrow. Here's those QR codes. Oh, these are slightly different QR codes. So this one is I think this one's our YouTube channel, right? And then this one is a link to our OER resource library. So there are similar resources on our YouTube and our OER resources, the video content, but the OER also has other things in it as well. And OER stands for Open Educational Resources. It's something that any educator can contribute to or access and utilize the free resources in the classroom. So I recommend checking that out if you haven't already. And then lastly, we wanted to share with you that we have launched our new CBE program that stands for Competency-Based Education. This first program that we're launching is a Master's of Science in Instructional Design and Technology. We're pretty excited about it. We used D2L as our learning platform, and it's just an awesome LMS. It has a lot of really cool features and tools built into it that just make learning so easy and fun and engaging. And we're excited to get people started. The first group will get to start on August 1st. So if you know anyone who's looking to get an MSIDT degree, go ahead and share this information with them. They can give us a call or email us, and we'll get them all the information that they need. But yeah, we're so excited you guys came and joined us today. Thank you so much for participating and being willing to be on mic. It makes it a lot more fun when we get to talk to you guys. George, Kenna, do you have any final thoughts?
Just thanks everybody for coming. And Calista, thank you for all the cool stuff that you let us play with today. So that was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all. And thank you, Calista and George, for your knowledge and just sharing that with us all. And I hope this was helpful to all of you and that you had as much fun as we did.
Can I say something? I didn't realize it was collaborative at this level.
Okay.
I'm serious. For some reason, I've not been able to access a lot of my PowerPoints on this flash drive that I was using, and I guess this is why. Because now that I see how collaborative Canva can be,
yes,
I think I'm saying goodbye to PowerPoint. It can just stay there, you know.
This could be a permanent solution to your flash drive problem.
And you had mentioned too, like a lot of the layout and things that take forever to make something look good. That's where all the time goes. And if Canva can do all that for me, then I don't have to get a headache off of something.
Exactly.
So I thank you, because I didn't realize it was as loaded.
Yeah, it's fully loaded. And the cool thing too is they're constantly adding more features. Almost every week I go and I find something new that I didn't know was already there. So I definitely encourage you to keep looking at whatever the new features are that have been released in the last couple of weeks, because I might not even know about it yet. I'm trying to stay on top of it, but they are in constant development, which is very cool. Yeah, hopefully we'll get to do this again.
Do another one on video.
I was thinking that too. I was like, I don't even think we'll have time to go into video. Like that's a whole nother thing. So maybe we'll have to do a special video one.
Well, Ken and Calista are pros at the video features. on Canva as well.
So easy.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And I look forward to seeing all the stuff from the contest if you would like to enter into it. I always get excited about seeing what other people are doing and making.
Yes, yes, we'll get that form out ASAP. Okay. Well, George, you're the host.
Okay, well then let's call this an amazing session. Kenna and Calista, thank you for just being so engaged with this and just really bringing some good stuff. And everyone else, just thank you for all that you did, bringing in everything here. So let's call this a wrap.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.